welcome to this special broadcast here on Zoom, which is coming to you in collaboration with India's premier communication setup, one of the best digital models of communication which have been created by Speak in partnership with me. Talk to Bhupendra, that's a hashtag that I go by these days. Away from a TV newsroom, from a TV studio to the Zoom studios, life for us has already changed. And it's a great pleasure and a great honor to have three people with me today in this digital Zoom room of ours who have this great responsibility on their shoulders of what is to be done with the education space. Let me do a quick round of introduction of all of them. Dr. Aseem Chauhan is the Chancellor of Amity University. Amity, as we all know, one of the foremost education institutions, not just in India, but in the world. The kind of work which has been done from a technology point of view by Amity Group is something that I think needs to be understood in greater detail. We also have Aakash Chaudhry. Aakash is the CEO and director of Aakash Institute, another renowned educational institute, a group which goes a long way in raising the bar when it comes to settling down and preparing for competitive exams. Mr. Raghav Gupta is the managing director of Coursera, and as the name suggests of his organization, Coursera, maybe there is a certain graph which Raghav will speak about in terms of where does he look as an opportunity in these great moments of adversity. So warm welcome. This broadcast is going to be live across all digital platforms. I'm putting it up across all pages of Talk to Bhupendra as well. So feel free, you can join in this conversation on our Periscope feed, on our Facebook feed, on our LinkedIn feed, on Instagram. The world, as we used to look at pre-COVID, is looking dramatically, remarkably different post-COVID. So Dr. Chauhan, let me straight away begin with you first. The one question which I have got from a whole bunch of users the moment I put this out on Twitter and Facebook that I was going to be in conversation with you today. Everyone first wants to know about the dreaded exam question.
Right.
What is the take? What is the take of stakeholders like yourselves in terms of what is to be done, how to deal with the fact that we just don't have exam results today?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. It's a very valid question. And over the last days and weeks, I'm getting questions primarily in two buckets. One question is, what is the long-term direction of education? How is education changing at a higher level? What is the impact of all of the online education that we are now seeing successfully implemented? Will the business models change? And the second question, of course, is the more immediate concern. And, rightfully parents of children, of students studying in schools, as well as higher education, are concerned, what do we do now? And discussions are happening at two different levels. One is within institutions themselves, that what are the best solutions we can provide to address the issue. And secondly, within the government departments and the examination office departments, they are discussing what should we do. The University Grants Commission has formed two committees. One committee is looking at the question of what to do about examinations, and the other is looking at online education quality and how do we roll it out. So I think very soon we will have some answers in hand. I think it will be a combination of allowing institutions to do examinations online for those who have the ability and facility to do so. And then for others to postpone the exams till a more traditional pen and paper model is available and the conditions are ready for that. For the school level, different boards are taking different decisions. For example, the International Baccalaureate, the IB board, has decided to do away with exams entirely this year and to let students progress on to universities based on faculty or teacher recommended marks. CBSE, ICSE, other boards are contemplating to maybe go ahead with exams when the time is right, but to do it with a smaller subset of exams, not all of the exams, letting students sit for exams that might be more pertinent to progression to universities. But truthfully, the verdict is out. And we know that this is an uncertain time. I think the next few days will be critical. We at Amity are preparing to do a lot of our examinations online. We feel we have the robust infrastructure to be able to implement that in a fair and pragmatic manner. So we are ready for that unless there is any guidance to the contrary from any of the statutory bodies.
Well, I'm hoping that that there is enough consultation which is taking place between the authorities and the stakeholders like yourselves. So let me bring in Raghav Gupta as well. Raghav, as I pointed out, is the founder of Coursera, world's largest online higher education platform. Now, Raghav, on one hand, there is this belief that the world, the way we used to see pre-COVID, is going to be looking dramatically different post-COVID. Now, look at this conversation, for instance. On another day, maybe we would have had this conversation in a physical space, in some kind of a hotel room with maybe physical audiences who would have been present in that room. Explain to me, Raghav, in a country like India, for an entire education system to be moved online, do you think we have the requisite infrastructure as we speak?
Yeah, so Bhupen, like you said, I think firstly, the scale of the disruption is very, very large, right? India has close to 1,000 universities, close to 50,000 colleges, and about 37 million students. And so just the scale of disruption is very large. Some institutions, the better ones have been prepared to be able to move learning online, and they've not, had a break in learning. But many have just not been prepared, right? I have kids myself. My son is in class 12. My daughter's in class 9, and doing Zoom classes all day is not easy. The kids are really finding it hard. But that being said, Coursera is probably the world's largest platform for higher education. We're based in the US, and there are 200 of the world's top universities teaching on Coursera. And I'm just going to share my screen and share one slide of what is it that we are seeing on Coursera currently. This is the last 30 days, and this is the only one slide that I will share. This is the last 30 days. The red line is 2019, and the green line is this year. And we have seen on an average last year, if about 1.5 million people would come to our platform. Currently, we are seeing close to 11 million people coming to our platform to take learning. And this is accelerating, right? In India, while globally we are seeing this is at about 650%, in India, we are seeing the increase is closer to 1,000% in terms of the number of people coming online. And I think the situation that is being accelerated is a number of individuals are finding that actually online learning had already evolved, and Amity has been doing some great work on this as well. Quite a bit. It was not the perception of disengaged, not high quality education. The current situation is forcing a lot of individuals to come online. And our sense is that once the lockdown gets over, of course, the world is going to stay changed forever because social distancing is here for many, many quarters and many years to say. I think a good discussion for us to talk about will be what will be that model of discovery once we go back from lockdown into a more open world.
What I would also be interested to know, Raghav, would be when you say that there is this huge growth in the number of your users, would you also have data at what level? I mean, are we looking at let's say class 12 plus? Is there certain classes, certain age groups where you're seeing more people coming in?
Yeah, so Coursera is a higher education platform, which means that, typically we will see people who are in colleges, universities, but also a lot of working adults. McKinsey says, as of 2018, 2 years ago, that technology is going to automate a lot of low skill jobs. And McKinsey came out with a report in April to say COVID is actually going to have an impact on low skill jobs. And so working adults are also realizing that this is not just the opportunity, but this is also the time when they need to reskill. Because if you're an accountant and if your job is going to get automated, you better learn data science because that's where the future is going to lie. And so what we are seeing on the Coursera platform is usually, students in college, students in universities, but also working adults who are saying, let me come in and invest in building skills because the pace at which the world was changing just got accelerated 3 times or 4 times.
Let me say this, that every word that you all are saying is being looked at with great interest because I can already see the Zoom room is full. As we speak in Zoom itself, there are 164 participants in these last 5 minutes. And this is going across. This is going across all streams. So this is the new age life, where hundreds of thousands of people can join into a platform like Speaking only because of technology. And maybe Raghav is right that we need to understand, we need to ask this question to ourselves, that what will happen once this lockdown is reversed? Let me also just take one question and let me put that to you, Aakash. Since you are the founder of Aakash Institute, and again, the competitive exams is the forte for your organization. This question is coming from a viewer who's online with us right now. He says, if we conduct online exams, then authenticating students poor availability of bandwidth in remote areas and connectivity will be major issues. How do we resolve this? So on one hand, we're talking about how do we go back, post reversal of lockdown. On the other hand, these very, very basic bread and butter issues, Aakash. How do we resolve these questions?
No, I think it's a very, very pertinent question. In a country like India, where just about 24% population has internet access, I think that's a big problem to face. And even though we're talking about online education, the assessment of the online education would need an online testing. I think people are right now trying all kinds of proctored testing and assessment tools, but they can only be accessible to the people who have internet, continuous internet, even continuous electricity for that matter, for them to access this. So this is the biggest challenge that the student community is going to face, the teaching community is going to face, because they are also dependent on internet to deliver. And apart from this, the entire ecosystem, when it goes for the high stakes exam, the continuous education is something which is a must. And in the current situation, we are not at all ready. If you talk about the hinterland, the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities, where internet is a big challenge. I can, for example, we had about 8 to 10,000 students who were accessing online content on an annual basis. In last 30 days, this 8 to 10,000 has gone to about 150,000. And that entire jump, this 15x jump has come, but then, they have come with lots of problems. I'm not able to access, I can't, log in, I'm getting locked out. So there are a whole bunch of issues which are actually, creating problem as far as learning process is concerned. So there are some real problems and challenges that needs to be addressed before we could really see, probably an India level adaptation of online, especially in these younger classes. In higher ed, in undergrad program, since students are there, they're working, they have access to investment on their devices, on the internet, they're able to access that education.
Pallavi is one of our viewers, and I mean it's just unbelievable. And Dr. Chauhan, I think that the way the questions are coming in and the way the viewers are joining in, it just shows what kind of panic or what kind of anxiety exists on minds of individuals. Let me take another question. This is coming from Varun Ahuja, and Varun is saying, will colleges in India make a shift to online classes and assessments due to pandemic? If they do so, then what are the advantages and disadvantages for the same? What I want to slightly rephrase this question, and what I'd really like to hear from you, Dr. Chauhan, is this, that all of us as consumers, are used to a certain educational ecosystem.
Right.
I think that now that belief that we had and the sense of, the touch and feel sense that we have, I'll go to a school, I'll go to a college, I'll meet the principal, I'll meet the teacher.
Right.
If all that changes, what kind of changes, what kind of training modules, for instance, for teachers, for those who are supposed to be imparting education, what kind of training modules do you think you'll have to create and conceive for similar results?
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Good question. And Raghav, thank you for posting the question. It is, of course, a question on everyone's mind. And we have talked about limitations, Bhupendra, in rolling out online learning, online education. But let me just talk about the flip side for a moment, that over the last weeks, as we have seen the pandemic come, there has been incredible success also in terms of migrating lakhs of students. At Amity, we have done lakhs of students. Across the board, there are millions of students that have been able to migrate on board. I think we need to salute the teachers and the faculty members who have been so incredibly nimble. We have to appreciate the parents who at home have been supporting as a partner to institutions. But as a whole, I think it is clear that we have new ways of living, of working and learning, of course, that will be with us to stay. The question of after lockdown, will this be something which remains, and is the model changing where universities and schools may in bricks and mortar form be irrelevant now and obsolete? That I do not think so, because people go to institutions and schools for more than just the knowledge which you get. There's socialization, there's extracurriculars,
So let
there
me
is meeting others.
Amity stands for a certain brand like Dr. Chauhan.
Correct.
Now
correct.
I want to know if,
Yes.
or Aakash Institute would stand for a brand, or Coursera would stand for a brand. I want to know whether this affinity, this brand loyalty, does that brand loyalty get impacted in a post-COVID kind of a scenario?
Well, no, I think not really. If anything, those that can do it right will further increase the trust in their brand, because the direction that I'm seeing that education will go in is that there will be hybrid models. Institutions that were fully offline, that were in universities or K-12 space, will not fully go online, but there will always be a blended learning aspect. The blended learning will be to allow more flexibility, more customized education, more learning at your own pace, more adaptive learning, so that every student can get the education that they want and that they deserve. So I think there will be an improvement of institutions through technology in forms of blended learning. And those that were purely online may also have to come to an offline model. So I think brands that are thoughtful about how education is delivered, the pedagogy, the assessment, will greatly improve and strengthen themselves as we go forward.
Raghav, this question is coming in straight for you, and this is coming from Pallavi. And Pallavi wants to know, she says that I've worked as a brand manager in the past and currently working as a category manager. She wants to know what skills could she learn, through organizations like yours, which will help her in the post-COVID world. So it's like you work as a consumer face. Now, when that consumer is not coming to you in a physical sense, then what kind of a skill set do you require, Raghav, to continue to be in the game?
So 2 areas. I would say if you've been a brand manager, you're currently a category manager, I think learning digital marketing skills is probably super critical. And along with that, learning skills which are related to data science and data analytics is critical as well. We're living in a world where the amount of data that all of us are generating is accelerating now because of COVID. And one of the things that Coursera did, there are about 2,300 organizations that work with Coursera on upskilling and reskilling their employees. And we looked at that data. Our data science team put out a point of view on saying, what are the essential skills map for the future by industry? And that's a great guide to go and refer to. But in the meantime, as quick reference, I would say building skills around digital marketing, digital consumer interface, and skills around data science, or as a beginner, data analytics are probably great areas to think about.
Another question, and this is coming from Rahul Gupta. And Aakash, maybe you can take this question. He says, after lockdown period, what kind of measures need to be taken in order to align students back to normalcy? So let me take that word of normalcy. What is this new normal, Aakash? Because I think the way what we thought was normal obviously is now changing. What will be the new normal in the education space according to you?
I think a lot of changes will have to be accepted, not only by the students but the rest of the other 4 stakeholders. The teachers, the parents, the education institute who's offering the services, and even the government authorities. So all these 5 key stakeholders must define a very, very safe and a conducive environment as long as offline education normalcy is to be taken into consideration the moment they come back. There are concerns around social distancing. There are concerns around accommodation of students who are from outstation. There are concerns around food and eating facilities for students who are staying in hostels or who are staying in PG accommodation. There are concerns around the size of the classroom. How many students can you accommodate at one point in time? There are concerns around how the teacher and the student need to distance themselves, and within the faculty, within the institute, distancing has to come in. So a new way of communication physically also will have to be evolved, when we go back to normalcy. And I think this, although in my opinion, this would be existent for at least a year or 2 years till the time the vaccination and permanent cure is available, is accessible for all people. But the fear and the the marks of this 1 year will persist for good 3 to 4 years for students to really let go of their hesitations to go back to the the pre-COVID era. But definitely when the students come back, they will see a very, very different environment.
So here's my counter to you, Dr. Chauhan. Then,
right.
Given the fact that Amity invests so much in building such a huge physical infrastructure. I myself have been to many of your institutes across the country. It's a fantastic setup that you've created. But if you now end up seeing in these next 2 years, as Aakash was saying, it will take you that kind of time, and I do believe, would an organization of your level, with
Right.
the kind of, say, turnover, the revenues that you all make, do you think you'd be in a position in which you can simply go to almost a 90% online model? Would that be possible for you?
See, number one, absolutely safety and security of students and staff and faculty always comes first. And the ability to go to a largely online model, that possibility exists. The technology exists, the ability to do that exists. The question is it the right model for the long term for everyone? And that is where the questions come in, because for reasons I've mentioned, in the long term, especially when we talk about normalcy, it is a new normal. But I think people will want that experience of being in a setting where you have other facilities and not just being online. I just want to emphasize one more thing. We're talking about these new trends in online education, new things that are happening. But the truth is that the pandemic has only accelerated trends that were in the country already. By the huge new internet penetration that already has been there for a number of years, the smartphones in everyone's hand, no matter what demographic they really come from, the young population that we have, and the government regulation. I want to share that Amity was the first university a few months ago to get permission to offer online degrees. I think more will come, but the government regulation was supporting it. So there was already a trend to go online. It does not mean that this online model is going to replace in the long term. And in my view, nor should it replace in the long term the more traditional models. I think we will have to take into account, as Aakash has highlighted, social distancing norms and safety norms. Those are being worked out. But I think in the long run, how can we use technology as a tool to improve education and not technology as a mean to itself? The one sector that I do think will be greatly benefited is not the maybe K-12 or university traditional model, but I think continuous education, lifelong learning, where when we talk about employability problems in our country, there will be a huge number of people that will want to keep getting upgraded. And we have things like Amity Future Academy and Amity Open Learn, who we're trying to give skills to people who are continuing education there. I do think that there might be a shift from classroom learning to online to a much greater degree. But universities are very hardy institutions. Schools are very hardy. They have gone through, pandemics. They have gone through crises. They have gone through a lot. And we find that over time, people do want an experience that is supplemented by technology, but not only online.
Now,
and maybe...
Yeah, sure. So
I was just going to say, maybe I can supplement what Dr. Aseem shared with a couple of quick examples, but I'm happy to go to the question you have as well.
No, because it was just following in from what Dr. Chauhan was talking about, because I'm just trying to take as many viewer questions as well, because
Please.
I'm seeing across social media, people appear to be glued into this conversation right now. On all streams, the full questions are coming thick and fast. Obviously, speaking led by Deepshika, they've done a commendable job of putting this together. And this is coming from Sid Mohan. What is he saying? He says, as online learning becomes more acceptable, do we see a shift of power play from institutions and towards super teachers who have the tech-savvy mastery of content and the right engagement style? So what I want to know from you, Raghav, is that do you think a new model will come in, a new opportunity, a new sphere will come in, where first you will have to teach the teachers in terms of how to, or maybe some algorithm, bring in better technology. I mean, sure, I'd like to believe an algorithm cannot replace a teacher. So you do require a physical teacher in some way or the other. Do you think there is a huge opportunity there, Raghav, where how do we make sure that these teachers who are suddenly being asked to conduct these Zoom classes and Windows classes and whatnot, that they're prepared to impart education like this?
See, what we've seen on our platform is certain courses can really scale. And let me take two examples. So there is a course on machine learning by Coursera's co-founder, Andrew Ng, who teaches at Stanford. That course has been taken by 2.5 million people. That's the scale that we're talking about. There is another course called Learning How to Learn, which is by a neuroscience professor, right? She understands how the human mind works, Dr. Barbara Oakley. And a fundamental course, Learning How to Learn, all of us should take it. It's been taken by another 2 million people. So your question about can technology enable teachers to scale, especially the super teachers? Yes, it can. Will it happen across all colleges and universities? No, right? Because eventually, like all of us are saying, we need a combination of online plus on campus, because development of students, the social interaction, all of that needs to happen. And what is happening is what is happening is accelerating what was already happening. So an institution like NMIMS in Mumbai says to its engineering students that to do a BTech, you need to take 160 credits over 4 years. But if you want a BTech honors, you need to take 20 additional credits. And I'll give you 20 additional credits on Coursera. And you can actually graduate with a BTech in computer science with a specialization in artificial intelligence, where the AI part of it, you probably studied from a top university like Michigan or Imperial or somebody like that. And I think that becomes a tremendous model for the student. From a faculty standpoint, I think the mindset needs to change. You know, faculty has textbooks that they use today, but they don't write those textbooks, right? They need to think about some online courses as a resource as well. It's not something that will replace the faculty member. A textbook does not replace a faculty member. If a faculty member approaches it by saying, listen, I'm teaching marketing over a 4-month period, and the digital marketing course I will plug in from Coursera, but the rest of marketing, the mentorship, the discussion, the group work, I will conduct in class, it becomes a win-win for the faculty, for the student, and eventually for the employer. And so I think hybrid models, blended models, whatever we call them, the government of India already allows 20% to be delivered online. We may see that becoming a norm post the current lockdown situation, and moving from, you know, we went from 100% on campus to very quickly 100% online. Normalization may come to 20-30% online and 70 to 80% back on campus.
Okay, this other question, and this question also is of interest to me, because again, it is, I think we're trying to find some answers to how the educational ecosystem will change if we were to be a completely, or let's say largely driven by digital platforms, at least in the short run. And this is coming from someone called Anonymous Attendee. He says, do you think it's justified to promote students without any exams and without a collective exam at the same time as boards or competitive exam? The exact results can be given. What I want to understand from you, Aakash, is this. Do you think, has the time also come for, in some ways, and Dr. Chauhan was talking about that maybe some of these change and these signs were all there, but maybe this corona pandemic has accentuated, it has accelerated the pace of change. Has the time come maybe for us to revisit how we were looking at the whole concept, the whole notion of exams itself?
Well, absolutely. I think this is a fantastic opportunity in this courage to relook at how we want to test and test not. The current list of offline or subjective testing can only test in a one specific manner. Whereas if the testing moves online, you can ask them on simulation, you can ask them to write, you can show them pictures, you can show them videos, you can make them listen to audio, and you know, you can actually test them on a very, very large number of dimensions, not just paper and pen knowledge. And I think when the testing moves online, I think it'll be far more deeper level of testing that can be administered. But you know, with all these kind of opportunities, the challenges, how do you ensure that there is no cheating? How do you ensure that this is completely proctored? So all those benefit, all those features will have to be built in, you know, to have a very, very holistic or a 360-degree assessment, which is far greater, far deeper than what we have today.
Another interesting question coming from Colonel Vivek Mathur, and he wants to know, how do you cater for certain specific streams such as civil or mechanical engineering, where there is no real substitute to practical work in the laboratory? You know, Raghav, how do you deal with that question? When you have certain courses where you have to be in a laboratory, now social distancing, offline teaching, online teaching, how do you deal with this question then?
Yeah, I think it definitely needs work in a lab, but I think, and this is not here yet, but I was attending the Coursera conference last week, and there was a speaker from Imperial College London, which as many people know is a leading institution, especially for medicine.
Right.
And they're thinking about bringing a fully online MBBS in about 3 years' time. So imagine being able to become a doctor and practicing all of that surgery in a virtual environment. Will it happen in mechanical and civil? I think it will. Is it there currently already? No, I don't think it is there currently already. And maybe it will never happen as well. But there is a significant amount of advancement happening. I can sit in India, I can be working at maybe Infosys or, TCS or a company here. I may be a BTech Comp Science student, and I can actually do a master's in computers from the University of Pennsylvania, sitting here in India online, and get the same degree as I would get on campus by going through the same admissions process, the same examinations as I would do on campus, but it's a master's from UPenn, which is Ivy League. So there is a lot of advancement happening. It is at the tip of the spear right now, but we will see that accelerating to more and more people as this progresses and as scale brings down cost of this technology.
Dr. Chauhan, where do you stand, Dr. Chauhan? I'm looking at Raghav and I'm trying to imagine the world.
Yeah.
I mean, I must share this with you. I was planning to go to Harvard myself at the end of the year,
right.
Till this pandemic happened for a fellowship. Now I'm wondering, do you really need to go to any of these Ivy League institutes? If what Raghav is saying is the future, if you can become an MBBS doctor without ever going to any physical classroom, then I think it's a completely different world. But I want to know, are we thinking too far ahead? Again, and I come back to the basic brass tacks. In a country like India, where we're still 60% rural areas, where we're still large sections, largely dependent on government school models of education, do you think these kind of examples are possible to be implemented in a country like India?
Yes, absolutely. And let me make 3 very quick points addressing some of the issues you have brought up. I want to preface by saying we all acknowledge that many people are going through very difficult times. It's a very tough time. So when we talk about opportunities and things that we can build from it, we must first acknowledge that most people are going through tremendously challenging times. But the silver lining, if any, is that in terms of learning, there is the possibility that has come up to have great collaboration and great innovation. And if we talk edtech and if we talk entrepreneurs, if we have young people or entrepreneurs online at the moment listening, let me tell you that the opportunity has never been greater for you to build businesses, for you to have an impact on the education landscape by using innovation. Because when we talk about helping rural areas, for example, the only way to be able to do that is if we think of new models and new technologies. So we will see things like artificial intelligence, gamification, virtual reality, software around adaptive learning and deep tech, biometrics, hologram technologies, peer-to-peer learning. Many of these new models will start impacting mainstream education. I'm seeing within Amity models and beta tests that we are currently implementing in partnership with young entrepreneurs and innovative young companies that I think can go mainstream. So I think innovation and opportunity that comes from that is number one, tremendous, especially to address some of the issues that you are talking about. When we talk about the digital divide, we must also acknowledge that in rural areas, the schools have very poor infrastructure and almost no teachers at all. So can we find a way to not leapfrog but pole vault, as Dr. Mashelkar says, to a solution that is there for a much broader set of people? And I think that can only happen if we use innovation and entrepreneurship to achieve that. And in collaboration, as has been mentioned, there's the possibility to partner with the best in the world. So through our Amity Future Academy platform, we can offer you certification from Harvard Business School online, Wharton online, eCornell in partnership with diplomas from Amity. For the first time, these things are happening, but I will also underline that we have to keep in mind the regulations and the laws of the country, which allow for some kind of certification to be offered in the country, but maybe not the whole degree today to be offered from abroad in India, which may or may not be recognized. So these are the nuances of regulation, which we also have to keep in mind.
We'll come to the government part in a moment, because the line of questions which is coming, it all points me to one direction, that people are simply scared of one factor, that they don't know what is immediately in front of them. So let me take another question. Let me throw that to you, Aakash. This is coming from Dr. B. Raja, and he happens to be from the Dadi Institute of Engineering and Technology in Visakhapatnam in Andhra Pradesh. What he wants to know is this: that how will the final year engineering students, how will they plan to face the employment scenario post-COVID? Now, Aakash, let's be honest. And again, I'm restricting myself to a conventional understanding of the education ecosystem. If you go to a physical institute, when I myself, when I would interview someone and I'd ask, which institute have you come from? If someone tells me I've come from, let's say, Amity School of Communication, I'll look at him in a certain way or her in a certain way. And somebody tells me, you know what, I've come from this online model of education. I may look at him in a completely different way. Do you think across the board, Aakash, do we still not make a distinction as employers between a physical verified degree versus, let's say, an online model of education? Is there a distinction that exists?
You know, the physical education degrees have been there for centuries. And I think it'll be too early to discard a decade-old online education. Not that important. So I think it'll take some time. I don't say that it'll never happen. It will happen, and one of the key ways that it can happen is when these online degree educated kids start to perform in the industry, start to perform in the sector, and make the big stories as some of the other physical education institute degree educator students have been doing for centuries. So I think it's a matter of time, and for someone who's graduating, I think it's a great opportunity to go back to those skill building that a child, a student, especially in that undergrad, is actually in a race to get a job, not to really see that what he or she really wants to do in the career. And I think somebody who does not get a job for another 6 months of his or her liking, that's not the end of the world. If you look back, if the child looks back after 10 years, it's a matter of 9 years or a 9.5 year back journey. It really doesn't matter. So I think this is a great time to really rethink that what exactly the kind of skills you want to build for the future. And I think it is very, very timely for those students who were actually graduating. They would have gotten into a job and they would have become worthless. And I think it's absolutely timely that they can really rethink that when I go back to the job market, what kind of skills I need to have. And I have a great opportunity sitting at home and, opportunity with something like Coursera or online Amity program to, upskill myself. I think they don't have to really worry. It's very, very timely. It has happened so sudden, and it's appearing as if it's the end of the world. But I think it's just the beginning for the online education. And to the earlier point, I always think that an opportunity like this, is also for creating more capacity for physical institutes. Earlier, let's say, any college, point in case Dr. Chauhan is here, Amity would call all the students 5 days or 6 days. Now they can call them twice, and they can actually double up their capacity. That the rest of the days the kids could study home online. So, it will, I seriously feel that in future, the access and availability of quality education will double up. The capacities will double up because students and parents and the stakeholders and even the industry will accept a hybrid or a mixed learning education, as a normal law. I think it's a great opportunity going forward.
I just want all of you to know.
There.
I just want all of you to know that every word that you're saying is being looked at with great interest by people across the country. There are all faculty members who've joined from various engineering institutes and medicinal institutes in Andhra Pradesh, in Telangana, in Kerala, in Punjab. And the broad thrust of a lot of these questions which are coming is just this, that how do we prepare ourselves better for the new world, which is staring at us in our faces? So Raghav, let me put this to you. All of us, here in the news world, for instance, we hear a lot about educational technology, ed tech. Throw some light on what are some new areas, what are some new things that our viewers would be watching this broadcast today should really be looking out for, so that they gain, in this extreme adverse time, they end up gaining something, some value-added skill.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to add a quick point to your previous two scenarios as well, Bhupen, and I think this will be helpful to think about the future. So I don't think there are two scenarios. I don't think there's a kid who comes from Amity School of Communication and a kid who comes from an online school. I think there's a third scenario where the kid who comes from Amity School of Communication has also taken a course on creative writing from a Pulitzer Prize winning author from Wesleyan University. And I think that is the question. It's not online versus offline or online versus campus. It is online and campus. And I think what becomes interesting is if you put this third kit into the picture and say, how does this compare to the employer versus the first two scenarios? I think that's the mindset that we need to have. I think for those institutions who are preparing for the future, like most of us are saying, I think online will play a significant role going forward, whether it be 20, 30%, we'll see. But there are probably 4 technologies that institutions need to think about as they get ready for enabling an online learning ecosystem. The first is real-time communication technologies, Zoom and so on and so forth. They need to have these because we will see some students on campus, some students may be online, and so on and so forth. Second is online learning platforms. There's Coursera, there's a few others as well. Third is what is called LMS, a learning management system, so that you can manage everything that you're doing. You can allocate classes to your students online and so on and so forth. And fourth, which we've spoken about on this panel, is online assessments and plagiarism control, so that you can actually do exams online. And a combination of these 4 technologies can actually set up an institution for 6 months out, 2 years out, and so on, to be able to do a combination of the on-campus plus online education.
Okay. So, Raghav, in a nutshell, essentially what you're saying is that it would be incorrect for us to assume that with this whole hype around social distancing, it would be incorrect to assume that the entire physical space is going to disappear. You're saying it will stay. Maybe the relevance associated with the physical ecosystem may reduce. Is that the point that you're making?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when, Dr. Chauhan and others can bring kids back onto campus, whenever that might be, and I think, like he rightly said, safety is the first priority here. At that point in time, I think we will see the physical and the online world coexist. So that's exactly the point I'm making.
All right. It's and many other questions. Dr. Chauhan, a lot of your students appear to have logged in today. Varun Ahuja, who's studying in Amity University, Jaipur, pursuing BBA. Gautam Gawali is saying, well, online classes fully may not be suitable for applied sciences like psychology. We took this question. P. Srinivas saying, is this possible to get the quality of education through online? Most of them says it bandwidth problem, internet signals, etc. All kinds of issues. But Neeraj Bali has an interesting question. If we are headed for a hybrid model of a brick and mortar and online, will employment in education sector expand? So while we're trying to look at adversity, Dr. Chauhan, is this also not a huge opportunity? And Aakash talks about it, that maybe you could have a scenario where for you to go from, say, a 100-seater classroom to a 200-seater classroom will be difficult. But for you to go from a 100-seater to 1,000 students online, may be easier. Is that the direction you feel that the education ecosystem is headed?
Yes. First of all, Bhupendra, you mentioned that some of my students are online. To all Amityans, I'm proud of you. You can achieve anything you want. Work hard, think for the country, help other people at this time. To answer your question, I think absolutely the opportunities are so tremendous, Bhupendra. We at our organization really are working day and night these days, trying to envision and dream what the future will be like. And I think really sky's the limit. And we have spoken about many, many important aspects today. But truly, we must keep in mind that before COVID-19 came, our education scenario in the country was not ideal. Truly, if we compare with the best in the world, we had a long, long way to go. And if through this, we all put our minds together and we find ways that we can innovate, that we can think of new models to educate and really improve the education for every child, not only in terms of access so that more people can partake of the education scenario, but also how to improve the quality of education for every child, then I think it'll be a tremendous long-term benefit for the nation as a whole. And we certainly are committed for that. Okay.
As we move towards the conclusion of this program, I'm trying to take it now in a socio-economic sphere as well. So Aakash, let me begin with you first on that front. We've looked at the examples that we've spoken about, UPenn and Harvard and, all top American and Ivy League institutes and whatnot. But there is a world out there, Aakash, there's a world out there which may just be struggling to somehow put their family members into an institute, say like yours, with some scholarship, etc. Do you think a digital model inherently comes with a class bias, that I need to have a good device, I need to have a good internet connection? If I have neither of these two, yes, the digital India and yes, Jio has, revolutionized the entire ecosystem, but still to assume that a family, say of 5 people will have 3 devices where 2 children will have 2 specific devices for themselves and they'll be able to consume these online courses. If we move towards greater importance being associated with the digital world, will we somewhere willy-nilly not end up accentuating the class divide in our country?
No, I think for online education to work, you need the vehicle. And without that vehicle, this is not going to work. And when you talk about physical education also, for somebody who has, limited means, is also struggling at the physical education level also to get a quality education, in the villages and the lower districts. So obviously, the situation current there is not as great as, it could be with the help of a device. The quality of education that a child is accessing today at a remote location.
Could be a problem. Could be a problem. Yeah, I agree. I mean, the quality of education.
What sitting in a village can access a Harvard lecture.
A
child in a remote location can access a Harvard professor lecture online, but the child cannot even dream of going there physically. But at the current situation, it may look like a divide, but it is a necessary vehicle that is required for you to get that quality education. And I think as the country is progressing, these devices are becoming part of the the daily needs. As we say, Maslow's hierarchy, people have already started marking Wi-Fi as a necessity of life. And I think with this COVID, devices will also become something part of that.
Well, I'll tell you what, here I'm in Uttarakhand. I'm not in Delhi or Mumbai right now. I'm in a remote location because of this corona pandemic. I got myself a good internet connection, so I can do this broadcast on a daily basis, air jaldi. And I sometimes have these conversations, with locals around here, and I ask them that how is internet changing their lives? So they are all looking for an opportunity. They believe internet gives them an opportunity. But Dr. Chauhan,
Yes.
there is an interesting question which is coming for all of you actually, but you perhaps would like to take it. Arvind Chabra says, institutions with programs require practical training.
Yes.
They can plan online teaching with 2 to 4 weeks of extensive on-campus or at satellite location hands-on practical training to accomplish necessary practical exposure to the students. And that's what Raghav was also talking about, that you need a blend.
Yes.
Maybe one needs to work out a model where a certain part of the year is actually spent in consuming courses like this kind of a conversation, and you spend a lesser amount of time physically being on the campus. Is that the biggest consequences of this corona pandemic according to you?
Yeah, the quick answer to that is, he's absolutely correct that there are parts of the curriculum which, despite there being software that you can do lab experimentation with, still, we would not be comfortable doing everything online without having some hands-on feeling about what is the experiment and doing it. And there are ways of using infrastructure to even it out. One of the big movements in online services and online education today is value-added services. So actually giving internships, providing lab services, more things that otherwise would be difficult to replace online. But I do still think physical infrastructure is required for some things, absolutely. Just one point I want to throw out there, that the question of will bricks and mortar disappear and can online be the only model? If you look at some very advanced and developed countries where infrastructure is there, technology is there, let's take the US as an example, or let's take Korea as an example, South Korea, where there has been incredible internet penetration for a very long time. Online programs have been around for a long time. Still less than 10% of students enrolled are online versus in bricks and mortar universities. Had there been such a desire to go fully online, maybe in those kind of countries, that shift would have happened a long time ago. It's indicative of the fact for humans to really want to have a different experience. And to your final point, Bhupendra, which yesterday we spoke about it, and I think it's very good of you to bring up the digital divide and what happens if people get left behind. I just want to share my view that the digital divide, if there's any way to bridge that divide today, the answer may also be technology. If you ask the government, can we build enough infrastructure in every district of the country? Can we get the right faculty trained in every district of the country to bring everyone to the same level? Or can we use technology platforms to bridge that digital divide? The answer eventually may come through technology. So can technology be the answer to that digital divide also?
All right, gentlemen, let me say with all humility and responsibility that it's been a fascinating conversation. I've really enjoyed this conversation. And just look at the interactivity. I think a lot of doubts that I myself had on my mind as a citizen, as a parent, as a stakeholder, a lot of clarity coming in as well. I take it from this conversation that in this moment of adversity, EdTech, educational technology, actually provides us with a huge opportunity. It's up to us. It's up to us as citizens, it's up to us as students, stakeholders, what we do with that technology. Thank you so much to all of you for joining into this conversation. Stay well, stay safe.